Terry Murphy, senior editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room with Murph, and the founder of the Women's Wisdom Network. And we love bringing wisdom to Realty Times. And we have it today within the Men's Room with a phenomenal man named Kirk Weisler. You might know Kirk. He's written a book called The Dog Poop Initiative. He's the CMO, that would be Chief Morale Officer for companies all over the world, including FedEx, Blue Cross, Bank of America, a couple you might have heard now and then. I think one of his greatest achievements, besides making people smile, he does have dimples, he does have an unfair advantage, is 6 kids, a gorgeous wife, and my favorite, the 19th Special Forces Army Ranger. He has served our country. Very impressive, Mr. Weisler. Welcome to Realty Times.
Absolutely a pleasure. I'm so excited to be your guest. You do so many fun things, and to be on your show is a great privilege. So yeah, let's get going. I'm ready.
Listen, I saw your backgrounds before we started. You are the fun one. Well, we started off with the Dog Poop Initiative. You've sold well over a couple 100,000 copies.
Sure.
The title's a bit interesting. And I don't know that everybody knows about the story. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to write it and the whole evolution of that book?
So you want the scoop on the poop? That's what I'm getting?
That's what I said, kids.
So the story, Terry, it's a fun story. My kids are older now. So the boy in the story that I'm about to describe to you is just about 5 years old. He's now in his 20s. But my job, because the girl I married was British. And so there was one ball in our family, and that was the soccer ball, because that's a thing for them. And so I got assigned to be the soccer ball coach or assistant coach, because I wasn't qualified to be the coach. And so this whole story was a true story that happened on a soccer field. And our family showed up to soccer, and my job as assistant coach is to keep the little kids off the field until it's our turn to play. And I do my job very well. My second job is to make sure I have Gatorade there for the kids on the breaks, because blue Gatorade is a big deal. And all that was going well, except this particular Saturday, something different happened. And that different thing was a pile of poop. And here's what happened. We show up, and I'm keeping the kids off the field. There's other parents that are watching the other 2 teams play on the field. We're going to be the next 2 teams on the field, the third game of the day, if you will. And the parents watching that game, Terry, one of them gets my attention, says, "Hey, are you on the field next?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Well, you'll need to watch out." And then they point onto the soccer field, and they point to a big pile of dog poop right there on the field, but kind of in the corner. And they saw that I saw it, gave me a nod of disgust, and their service to the community was done, letting me know the poop was there. They had checked the box. And so I stood there going, wow, that just happened. That an adult just pointed to another adult to point out that just happened. And so as I'm pondering that, not really processing it deeply, another parent who didn't see me get that warning also gave me the warning. So this was the warning of the day, was to make sure everyone knew the poop was there. And so that was the community service, was let everyone know by pointing, hey, right? It's there. And so I'm like, well, I know I've got to clean that up, because genetically in my family, Terry, we've been stepping in poop for generations. It's just what we do. So I know if there's one boy on this field that's going to step, it's going to be my boy. So I've got to clean that up. So when their game is over, I'm going to do it. Well, what happens next, Terry, is Coach Coleman, the real coach of our team, shows up. I watched him get the same 2 warnings I got, but it didn't end there. A few minutes after their game ended, what we do now is do some warm-ups. So we're going to get our kids kicking warm-ups in the net. We're going to, before the game starts. But as we walk onto the field, these are 5-year-olds. So the coaches are on the field with their team to make sure the ball is in the right direction. So now we've got 2 adults coming off the field. We've got a referee with a whistle. We've got a coach, assistant coach, assistant coach. There's 6, 8 adults on the field. We're having a huddle now. And the subject of that huddle is that pile of poop on the field.
Oh dear.
The guy with the referee, just a young man, probably doing some community service by the look of him for a community judge. He says, no worries. If the boys start to kick the ball over there, I'll blow the whistle. We'll just pull the ball. They're little boys, big field. We'll just move it back on the other side of the field. We'll be fine. He says, we've been doing that all day. At this point, I notice Coach Coleman isn't even listening anymore. He is withdrawn from the huddle. He's walking towards a trash can. I follow his example. I walk towards a trash can. We find a piece of cardboard and a stick, and 60 seconds later, the poop is cleaned off the field. At this point, Terry, a parent of the departing team, one of the departing teams said, "Hey, good job." Somebody really needed to do that. Now, Coach Coleman is a much classier guy than I am. And so he didn't say anything, but I did. I said, "And it couldn't have been you." I was just like, what? Now, that is the story behind the story. So what happened next was we played a game. We played a game for an hour, and we never worried about the poop or the ball going over there or the kid stepping in. It just never crossed our minds. And you'd think that would have been enough. But the next morning, I don't know if this ever happened to you, Terry, where something happens the day before, the next morning you wake up and you're kind of seething about it. You're just like, it's just churning in your mind, like that was not right. Something's not right. And of course it wasn't right. But what I woke up thinking was, all these kids, all these children saw all these adults do all this pointing and all this blaming. And none of these kids saw any of these adults do anything that looked like initiative or leadership. And that bothered me. So I wrote about it. And this was long before, blogs and viralness. And I just sent an email out to a couple thousand people that I was associated with and said, "Hey, here's a thought for the day, if you will." And I didn't expect what happened next. And that was that these people would print this thing off. It really resonated so deeply with people. They printed it off, they read it in staff meetings. The next thing I know, I got an email from someone that worked at the Pentagon, from Renaissance Hotels. It had been read in board meetings and staff meetings. And over the next couple months, I got emails from people that had read this in their staff meeting and that had meaningful discussions about their poop issue, if you will. And that's when my brother, that's when my big brother said, "Hey, Kirk, you got to do a book about this." And so
And there it is.
There it is. So that's
and
probably
it's
more
not,
than you want to know.
and it's not even just in one language. I mean, this had global proportions, including your friend, Mrs. Stone.
Yeah, Mrs. Stone. Let's see if so Mrs. Stone, here's a copy. I'm helping to clean up the Holy Land. This is in Hebrew. There it is. And a company in Germany called and said, "Hey, Kirk, we've got a problem with initiative. We'd like to print your book." And so they said, sure. And they traded me 3 bottles of wine to print my book in their language. So
here's the core of the story. Initiative and leadership go hand in hand, and the demonstration in front of all of these young people. And you have to admit, I mean, obviously, cleaning up after a dog is not exactly elegant, but it was necessary, and it created a whole different culture, safety, whatever. I mean, it's a pretty amazing story when you think about it.
Terry, I never set out to be the poop guy or the initiative guy. Some people go, "Hey, I know you're the poop guy." And I never set out to be that guy, and I didn't at the time in my career. I wasn't talking about initiative. I was always talking about culture and building teams, that kind of stuff. But I was really intrigued. I've learned a couple things about initiative. Let me share with your listeners, and a great lesson I learned about initiative. One that I didn't know deeply enough. I know it now, and I knew it as soon as this person taught it to me. But before, I think my primary thinking was people didn't want to clean up the poop because it wasn't their dog, and it is kind of a nasty assignment. I get called to be on a radio show by a disc jockey and their team. So this, I forget which radio show it was, but this guy and gal, one of them got the books and they'd read it. And then he shared a story about how he's walking down the grocery store and some food had fallen off the aisle, into the aisle. And he said, I normally would have walked past that, but he said, I couldn't because I'd read this book, kind of a thing. And so they had me on the radio show to tell me that story. And I was supposed to tell the story behind the story. And then it was supposed to be a 5-10 minute segment. And then the phones lit up. And so they asked me, "Kirk, would you stay on and we've got a lot of people want to talk to you about this story." And I said, sure. This was my first radio show ever. So I was like, okay, I don't know what to expect. And then caller after caller after caller shared stories, but the theme stayed initiative, but it changed slightly. And here's what I learned. And I'll give you the example of one caller in particular. She said she's walking back in after lunch. She's with 2 carloads of coworkers. This is a good team. She said, these are great people. I work with these people every day. We're walking back in from the parking lot, down the sidewalk. In front of our building, there's 2 large trash cans, but off to the side, about 20 feet before the door, off the sidewalk on the grass, she said, is a double gulp styrofoam cup, kind of crushed, kind of dirty, laying there. And she said, some of us have passed it. Some of us are coming up on it. She says, I decide, you know what, I'm just going to pick that up and throw it in the trash can. She said, as I went over and began to lean over to pick it up, one of her coworkers said, don't touch that. You don't know where it's been. And shamed me she said, I didn't pick up the cup. And she said, and it really bothered me. And she said, as I sat back down at my desk, I thought, what just happened? And here's what she taught me, Terry. She says, I realized that she wasn't really concerned about the fact that I might get my hands dirty. There might be germs on the cup. What was her real concern? Why didn't she want her coworker to pick up the cup?
Made her look bad.
Because she didn't pick it up.
Right.
And if you take the initiative when I didn't take the initiative, there's this whole peer subculture, this peer pressure subculture, right? If you do that, you'll make me look bad.
Less, not as concerned.
Yes.
Yes, less attention. Yeah, it's so interesting that peer pressure. And at the end of the day, like you said, when you have it in your genes, right? It doesn't have to be your job, but if it makes things better, safer, cleaner, more organized, why not? I mean, the energy is always out there.
Peer pressure should be such an insidious thing. So I just think, but the moment that someone takes the initiative, the moment someone takes that first step, it really can blow the doors off that. If you can move past the peer pressure, and we all should, and just do what we know in our heart is the right thing to do, we now can move from shame to inspiration. Now we can be an inspirational figure. Not that we're seeking to be inspirational, right? But our example then allows or creates, right, an opportunity for people to say, you know what, me too. And so that's what people tell me that they love about the book. They say, Kirk, we can read your book in staff meeting in 5 minutes or less. Everybody gets it. And without shame, we begin to talk about the thing that we've been complaining about and pointing at. And now we just go, what are we going to do about it? And the solution almost always, it's not 60 seconds like a pile of poop on a soccer field, but the solution is almost always much, much, much shorter than the amount of time we've been complaining about it.
So it's not the only book that you've written. I mean, you obviously are a speaker. You're an executive coach. As a chief morale officer, you do a ton of great teamwork. Your perspective is simple, it's unpretentious, and they're applicable. They're real life applicable. So it's not a one and done. It's something like, just like your book, which continues to change behavior, is what I'd like to say.
Oh, yeah.
I know that people would like to find you first, but before that, I mean, tell them where to get the book first. Tell them where to get that book, because we also have 2 other books we're going to talk about in a separate group. One is Alexander's Mirror, which is amazing. One of my favorites is The Cookie Thief, because The Cookie Thief, pretty much, that's a really good one. That's
The Cookie Thief is my favorite story. The dog food book is the favorite story of the public and managers, because they love to use it in huddles and things. But that cookie, we got to talk about The Cookie Thief, because there's a reason I told that story. It's because I need it so much in my life. So how to get a hold of the book? Amazon is the easiest. If you're a click and shipper and a one clicker there, and you got Prime, you should do that.
A click and shipper, is that what you just said?
Click and ship. But my website, kirkweisler.com, is the best place. And if anyone just you can order on my website, and if you type in the comments, hey, I heard you on Terry's show. I heard you in the men's room, which sounds interesting. That would be interesting to see that in the comment box. I'll double your order. Okay.
Oh, wow. How do you like that? By the way, Weisler is spelled Weisler. And, I do want to do it. We're going to do a separate segment on the Alexander's Mirror, because that one is almost unbelievable. The Cookie Thief is about a situation. Now, if you've ever been in an airport, this is particularly adorable. Tell us just a little bit about The Cookie Thief.
Okay, before I do though, you said this book really resonates with you. Can you tell me why that is?
Well, because airports, especially as of late, people are not particularly gentle with each other. They're rather self-absorbed, and
Sure.
And I'm just an observance. It's
Okay.
Travel is stressful. No matter, I don't care if you're going on your dream vacation or your honeymoon. Travel is just stressful. There's lots of people making deadlines. They're stressed. They're packing up all their pajamas and all that stuff. So it is a place, but the fact that it happens in an airport, sitting next to someone, to me is fascinating. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, thanks. I relate to the principle. So this story is a classic story, and I try to find the roots of the story. This story, the dog poop story, is an original story to me and my family, my experience. The cookie story is a story that I heard that really impacted me, and I think stories are great tools for leaders to shape and inspire and be intentional with culture. But I think the stories that have the greatest impact that we share with other people are the ones that we've allowed to have an impact on us, right? If I've been changed or affected by a story, its propensity to have that same effect on others is much, much greater than if I'm just telling a story for the sake of. This story was shared by Dr. Stephen Covey. He shared two stories when he taught the principle of having a paradigm shift. One was a very personal story that happened in a subway. It's a very heavy story. The lighter story was the story of the cookie thief, which is in Chicken Soup for the Soul books. It's, again, the story goes back 100 years. The premise of the story is, it comes down to someone feels like they've been slighted. Someone feels like they've been robbed. Someone feels like a fellow passenger is taking something from them. And later they discover, when they lift up their jacket, that what they thought had been taken was actually still with them all along. And the whole time they were coming to all this anger and judgment about how unfair they were being treated. This was a creation of and a narrative in their mind that changed their emotional state. And later, all that turned out to be false. But the feelings they created and the judgments they had of this other passenger were real. And I don't know about you, Terry, but one of my dark superpowers is rushing to judgment. I don't know if you've ever had an opinion about someone.
Excuse me. Yeah, we write Conversational Intelligence by Judith Glaser tells us that we write a story within 7 seconds. It's called Conversational Intelligence, and generally we are completely incorrect.
I love that book. And so when I heard the story shared with me, I thought, I'm that guy. I'm that guy that has an opinion before he has the facts. I'm that guy that finds myself apologizing or just kind of feeling like, Kirk, how do you get there so quickly? And I needed help. And this story helped me, remind me, it invites me, helps me be more intentional about, seek first to understand, right? Then, right? Verl Workman, my friend, it says, live in curiosity, stay out of judgment, live in curiosity. And so that's the idea. And this book for me was one of the most helpful stories that helped me stay out of judgment and stay in curiosity, to live in that seek first, understand, and stop having an opinion before you have any facts, Kirk. And so and I wanted to retell the story in my own way and with some fun pictures and stuff. And so
your graphics are adorable. And I would encourage anybody who's watching or listening to consider getting Kirk's books for your children, for your coworkers. When we reduce something to something as safe as what looks like a children's book, we have a better chance of connecting. And that's what this is all about. As a chief morale officer, you understand that morale is done inside your head. It's not outside.
Yeah.
One of the quotes that I really deeply appreciate and respect you for is that you like seeing your work life as your life's work. And so instead of having to make the donuts, you want to make the donuts because a donut makes people happy.
Right.
So good for you. It's just more meaningful, more full, and more fulfilling, more rewarding. We are going to do a separate segment on the whole story behind Alexander's mirror. But I want you to join us for another segment. It's Kirk Weisler. It's kirkweisler.com. And if you mention Realty Times, he's got a generous offer in there. He was definitely in the men's room with Murph. I hope you'll join us again, Kirk, for another segment of In the Men's Room on Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.